On the morning of May 6, 1884, a former president of the United States counted what was left of his fortune. The sum came to $210. Ulysses S. Grant had commanded armies and signed the laws of a nation. Now, at the close of his life, he had been emptied out by a single quiet young man with a soft voice and a gift for arithmetic that did not add up. The man's name was Ferdinand Ward, and for a few golden years, Wall Street had called him the young Napoleon of finance. This is the story of how he did it, and how the bill finally came due. Ferdinand de Wilton Ward was born in 1851 in Geneseo, a small town in upstate New York. The son of missionary parents who preached thrift and restraint, he absorbed none of it. In 1873, he came down to New York City and took a clerk's position at the Produce Exchange, the great trading hall near Bowling Green where fortunes in grain and cotton changed hands. He was watchful, polished, and easy to trust. In 1877, he married an heiress, Ella Champion. To everyone who met him, Ferdinand Ward looked like a young man going quietly and respectably toward wealth. The respectable part was the disguise. In 1880, Ward opened his own banking and brokerage house. His first crucial ally was James Dean Fish, the president of the Marine National Bank, a respected institution that gave Ward something he could not buy honestly, the appearance of safety. Fish became an early investor and stayed close as the years went on. With a real bank standing behind him, Ward no longer looked like an ambitious clerk. He looked like a member of the financial establishment. The bank's name opened doors, and behind those doors, Ward began to assemble the machine that would eventually consume it. Ward still needed the one thing money could not manufacture, a name beyond reproach. He found it through Ulysses S. Grant Jr., known to everyone as Buck, the son of the former president. Buck came into the firm as a partner, and the house took the name Grant and Ward. Then the old general himself was drawn in. Ulysses S. Grant, the victor of the Civil War and twice president, invested $100,000 and lent the firm the full weight of his reputation. From that moment, an investment with Ferdinand Ward felt like an investment in the honor of the United States. The story Ward told was irresistible. He claimed to hold secret inside access to lucrative government contracts, deals so sensitive they could not be discussed, profits so reliable they bordered on certainty. Investors were promised returns far beyond anything an honest market offered, and at first the money flowed back exactly as promised. But the contracts did not exist. There were no government deals, no hidden profits, nothing being invested at all. The high returns paid to early investors came straight from the cash handed over by newer ones. It was the design we now call a Ponzi scheme, built years before Charles Ponzi gave it his name. To keep the machine fed, Ward worked the same trick again and again. He pledged the same securities as collateral over and over, borrowing fresh money against assets he had already promised elsewhere. As long as new deposits kept arriving faster than old promises came due, the books looked magnificent. On paper, Grant and Ward appeared to be one of the great houses of Wall Street, its accounts swollen into the millions. The wealth was real enough for Ward himself. He bought a city brownstone and a country estate, and the financial press crowned him the young Napoleon, a genius who seemed to conjure profit out of thin air. Among those who trusted the magic was Thomas Nast, the most famous illustrator in America, the cartoonist whose pen had toppled the corrupt Tweed ring in New York. Nast poured much of his savings into Grant and Ward. He was not alone. Clergymen, widows, businessmen, and old soldiers placed their futures in Ward's hands, reassured by the president's name on the door. Every one of them believed they were lending to genius. In truth, they were simply the next layer of fuel, their money already promised away to the investors who had come before them. The wider the circle grew, the harder it would fall. By the spring of 1884, the machine was starving. New deposits were no longer arriving fast enough to cover the old promises, and the Marine National Bank, dangerously entangled with the firm, was running short of cash. In early May, Ward came to Ulysses Grant with a desperate story. The firm faced only a temporary squeeze, he said, and needed $150,000 to ride it out. Grant, believing his partner and his own good name were sound, went personally to the railroad magnate William Henry Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt wrote the check, saying plainly that he made the loan to accommodate Grant, not the firm. Grant endorsed Vanderbilt's check and handed it to the firm. Ward took the money and vanished. On May 4th, 1884, Buck Grant met his father at the Wall Street office with the words that ended everything. Grant and Ward had failed, and Ward had fled. The old general sat in the silent building for hours. The Marine National Bank collapsed, deposits evaporated, and the shock rippled outward into a wider crisis that history remembers as the Panic of 1884. The firm's books had shown more than $14 million. Behind the figures, there was almost nothing left to recover. The ruin reached into the Grant family home. The president and his wife Julia were left with about $210 in cash, their trust funds gone, their security wiped out by a man they had treated as one of their own. Thomas Nast lost much of what he had saved. Across the city, ordinary investors who had trusted the famous name on the door discovered that their savings had funded the comfort of strangers. The young Napoleon of finance had a new title, one that fit far better. He was now called the best hated man in the United States. Justice, when it came, was clear. Ferdinand Ward was tried for fraud and convicted in the New York courts. He showed little remorse, reportedly explaining his scheme with the old phrase about robbing Peter to pay Paul. He was sentenced to 10 years and sent up the Hudson to Sing Sing prison. He served roughly 6 of those years before his release. His banker partner, James Fish, was also convicted and imprisoned. The man who had borrowed the establishment's trust to build an empire of paper would spend the heart of his life behind stone walls, paying a debt that no fresh deposit could ever cover. Ulysses Grant did not have years to recover. Dying of throat cancer and stripped of his savings, he set out to provide for Julia in the only way left to him. He wrote, racing against his own failing body, he completed the personal memoirs of Ulysses S. Grant, finishing the manuscript only days before his death in July 1885. Published with the help of Mark Twain, the memoirs became a triumph and earned his widow a fortune, securing the future Ward had tried to steal. Ferdinand Ward faded into obscurity and died in 1925. His name is mostly forgotten. The con he perfected never has been.